day, Einstein has to speak at an important science conference. On the way there, he tells his driver that looks a bit like him, "I'm sick of all these conferences. I always say the same things over and over." The driver agrees, "You are right. As your driver, I attend all of them. And even though I don't know anything about science, I could give the conference in your place." "That's a great idea," says Einstein. "Let's switch places then." So they switch clothes, and as soon as they arrive, the driver dressed as Einstein goes on stage and starts giving the usual speech, while the real Einstein, dressed as the car driver, attends it. But in the crowd, there is one scientist who wants to impress everyone and thinks of a very difficult question to ask Einstein, hoping he won't be able to respond. So this guy stands up and interrupts the conference by posing his very difficult question. The whole room goes silent, holding their breath, waiting for a response. The driver looks at him dead in the eye and says, "Sir, your question is so easy to answer that I'm going to let my driver answer it for me." James is walking on a downtown street one day, and he happens to see his old high school friend Harry, a little ways up ahead. "Harry, how are you?" he greets his old buddy after getting his attention. "Not so good," said Harry. "Why, what happened?" James asks. "Well," Harry says, "I just went bankrupt and I've still got to feed my family. I don't know what I'm going to do." "Could have been worse," James replies calmly. "Could have been worse." A month or so later, James again encounters Harry at a restaurant. "How are things now?" he asks. "Terrible," said Harry. "Our house burned down last night." "Could have been worse," says James, again with a total oblivious to the fact that Harry is having a rough time, and goes about his business. A month later, James runs into Harry a third time. "Well, how goes it?" he inquires. "Oh," says Harry, "things just got worse and worse. It's one tragedy after another. Now my wife has left me." Harry nods his head and gives his usual optimistic-seeming smile, accompanied by his usual words. "Could have been worse." This time, Harry grabs James by the shoulders. "Wait a minute," he says. "I'm not going to let you off so easy this time. 3 times in the past few months we've run into each other, and every time I've told you the latest disaster in my life, every time you say the same thing. Could have been worse. This time, for God's sake, Harry, I want you to tell me, how could it have been worse?" James looks at Harry with the same little wisp of a smile. "Could have been worse," he says. "Could have happened to me." These 2 jokes came from Ranker.com.